Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. This is the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. We're back for another week. I really liked last week's episode. It feels really nice to just come on here, yap about all like news stories that I feel like talking about, and then not having to worry about uploading the video, making all these thumbnails, like just kind of not caring about talking about stuff in a timely manner. Just every Friday, I just want to come on here and just yap. And yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. So let's jump right into it. So it seems like Netflix is going to buy that live action Gundam movie starring Sydney Sweeney and Noah Centineo. So this is coming from Deadline. Legendary's live-action feature adaptation of Gundam looks to have found a home as sources tell Deadline that Netflix is on board to distribute the pick. Sydney Sweeney and Noah Centineo are on board to star with Sweet Tooth director Jim Mickle helming. So I'm going to be real with you. I don't know anything about Gundam. I believe that it is like giant robots. I assume there are people inside of the robots. So I'm assuming that Noah Centineo and Sydney Sweeney are going to be inside of giant robots. I don't know if they fight kaijus. I don't know if it's robots fighting other robots. But this feels right. I feel like a Gundam movie probably wouldn't make a ton of money if they put it out in theaters. But it's like, you know, you're going to put it out on Netflix, fart it out on Netflix, and, you know, the Netflix algorithm shows people a new Sydney Sweeney movie where she's in a giant robot suit. It'll probably do well on that platform. So this feels right. But if you're a Gundam fan, let me know. Or do you hate that Sydney Sweeney is starring in a Gundam movie? Do you feel like that's not something that you want to see? Do you hate the fact that it's going to Netflix? If I was a fan of something, I probably wouldn't want the film adaptation of it going to Netflix, but, you know, it is what it is. It is interesting, right? Because, so Netflix is buying Warner Brothers, and in them buying Warner Brothers, they are inherently getting a theatrical distribution arm, but I would not expect that to mean anything here, because anything that Netflix is producing right now, I don't know, maybe they can make a decision afterwards, but anything that Netflix produces right now is being made with the intention of distributing it just on the Netflix streaming platform. I don't think that they can legally make super creative decisions based off of what they're going to do with Warner Brothers until the deal actually goes through. I believe that's like a legal thing where you can't do things beforehand. So yeah, either way, I assume that this Gundam movie is just going to end up being a streaming movie. I don't think it's going to end up going to theaters. All right. So, the next thing I want to talk about is Bob Iger is exiting as Disney CEO role early in 2026. So, Disney CEO Bob Iger... let me look up. Disney CEO Bob Iger is reportedly stepping down from his position in advance of the end of his contract. Iger's contract is up at the end of the year, but a report from the Wall Street Journal says he's told associates he's stepping away from the role early. According to the Wall Street Journal, Iger has told associates that he's ready to pull back from daily management. He's also told people close to him that he is ready to move on from the grind of being CEO, particularly after becoming frustrated with the controversy surrounding Jimmy Kimmel's suspension from ABC and eventual reinstatement. Okay, I'll be honest, just as far as the sniff test is concerned, it's like, I mean, I understand that would have been a stressful situation, but it's like, was that really like the straw that broke the camel's back, the whole Jimmy Kimmel situation? I mean, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I guess to be fair, like, the executive branch of the United States government, like, pressuring media companies into doing stuff. It's like, I'll be honest. I was about to say, like, was that really the straw that broke the camel's back? That actually makes a lot of sense. I feel like if I'm Bob Iger and I'm old as shit and I can realistically just retire and live the rest of my days, on a beach or somewhere, like, I'm probably not all that eager to deal with a reality where a fascist government is trying to censor the media. It's like, I feel like that actually, you know what? I completely understand. That is the point in time where I'm like, you know what? I don't need to deal with any of this. So, you know what? Never mind. That actually makes a lot of sense. Uh, while some, including Hollywood insider Jeff Schneider on social media, say the official announcement of Iger's exit is imminent, the Wall Street Journal reports that the Disney board is set to meet in Burbank next week to vote on Iger's successor. Bob Chapek previously succeeded Iger as Disney CEO in 2020, but Iger was brought back to supplant Chapek in 2022 after the Disney board. His return was reportedly always meant to be short-term as Disney searched for a new successor, but Iger renewed his contract with Disney in 2023. So, see, is there anything else that I highlighted? Yes, there is. The Wall Street Journal reports that there are two leading contenders to follow Iger as Disney CEO. One is Josh D'Amaro, the person who succeeded Chapek as the leader of Disney Experiences, overseeing Disney's parks, cruises, and consumer products. The other is Dana Walden, the current co-chairman of Disney Entertainment. So, yeah, Bob Iger seems like he's stepping out early. I think that this is not great for Disney. Bob Iger is obviously the guy that really spearheaded whatever you think about it creatively, financially, everything that Bob Iger did was, it made for one of the most successful commercial runs, I feel like, of any movie studio, right? Because, I believe Bob Iger was the guy that bought Pixar. That was obviously a great investment. They bought Lucasfilm, which obviously hasn't turned out all that great, but initially was making billion-dollar movies. He bought Marvel, which led to the most successful media franchise of all time. I believe I guess you can say that he like spearheaded the whole live action remake thing of all of their classic IPs, which those movies have been very successful. Like that, like 2010 to like 2019 run, maybe a little earlier if you want to go back to 2008 when that first Iron Man movie came out. It's he really spearheaded the Disney to be the like just media powerhouse that they were like at the end of 2019. And then, they ended up getting somebody else in, Bob Chapek, and he kind of, if you believe the reports, he was the guy that really caused the company to nosedive when you saw like the decrease in popularity and quality of Star Wars and Marvel, not just in movies but on Disney Plus and whatnot. I believe Bob Chapek, it was his decision to like start doing day and date releases during COVID, which really hurt the Pixar brand. So I don't know. Like this is really one of those situations where I don't know who should lead Disney. I don't know who any of these other executives are and what their qualifications are. So we're gonna wait and see. But we really can't be surprised if Disney starts going kind of downhill again when Bob Iger leaves, because that's what happened when they brought somebody else in the last time. And I don't think that Bob Iger is going to come back if it does. So we'll see what happens. All right. Vin Diesel has this is not. Let me see if I can fix this here. No. Let's not do that. Here we go. Oh my gosh, what is happening? I'm sorry. I'm having technical difficulties. Okay, we're doing a live show here. There we go. Vin Diesel announced on his Instagram the title for the next Fast and the Furious movie, but also the date. So he posted a picture of him and Paul Walker. It says, "No one said the road would be easy, but it's ours. One that has defined us and become our legacy. And a legacy lasts forever. March 17th of 2028. Fast forever." So, yeah, this is, I believe, Fast and the Furious 11, right? This is a movie that has kind of been in development hell for some time because, the last like two Fast and the Furious movies have been insanely expensive and did not reach the box office heights of, I would say, like Fast 7 and Fast 8. I believe so. We've kind of covered on the channel before that. I believe in order to make this last Fast and the Furious movie, Vin Diesel has been like forced to cut back the budget of the Fast and the Furious movies. So it seems like they've finally come to some kind of agreement, and they are indeed going to make the last Fast and the Furious movie. And it's probably going to be scaled back. It's probably not going to be globe trotting. They might not be able to bring back the whole cast and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes out. Listen, I love the Fast and the Furious movies for what they are. I, enjoyed the past few Fast and the Furious movies, but there's no doubt that there's a certain magic that they acquired in Fast and the Furious 5 that they simply lost in like Fast and the Furious 8, 9, and 10. There's just like this really perfect cheese and camp that I feel those Fast like 5 and 6 and 7 had. And I would love nothing more than for them to get back to what makes the Fast and the Furious movies great in Fast 10. And if they can, have a satisfying conclusion, that'd be great. But I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm not just assuming that they are. But we'll see. Fast forever, baby. All right. Now let's talk about HBO, because there's a bunch of stuff that Casey Bloys has been saying in an interview. So let's just go through some of this. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms has been renewed for a second season. There are 3 novellas, but George R.R. Martin has indicated that he has put other ideas to paper. Is there a possibility for the show to go beyond 3 seasons? And then Casey Bloys answers, that would be a conversation with Ira and George. Certainly possible. So we'll see. They're producing season 2 right now. Season 3 beyond that. I haven't really gotten into what's possible beyond that, but if he's got more stories, it's certainly something to talk to Ira and George about. Has production on season 2 started? Yes, they're currently shooting. This will be annual. Again, it was something that we were trying to... it's not possible for all shows, but it is something that where it's possible creatively to get back to that, and we'd like to try and do that. So, first of all, that's really cool to hear that they want to make a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms an annual show, which, as I said, is what TV used to be. Yeah, I think that's awesome. It seems like they haven't greenlit season 3, but if they want to make it annual, then they're going to have to do that fairly soon. And yeah, it's interesting that they're going to do what they did with the original Game of Thrones did, it seems like, which is go beyond the books that already exist. Although, I imagine it won't be that big of a deal for Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, because it's not like the storyline is as complex. It is very hyper-focused on Dunk and Egg. So, I'm not too worried about that, but that is definitely a bit of a red flag that that we're gonna have to see how that goes. Now he also mentions talk about House of the Dragon season 3 and how George R.R. Martin was not as involved with it. So Deadline asks him, how involved was he, George R. R. Martin, in season 3? Did he really pull back and then come back? Casey Bloys, he says, he definitely took a step back. And I would say he's definitely been focusing on Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And I will tell you one of the reasons why. Franny and I really thought about the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms as an interesting adaptation is we had always heard and know that it was George's favorite. That was meaningful to us. So, I feel like I kind of agree with most people that House of the Dragon Season 2, I still enjoyed it, but it was definitely weaker than Season 1. And I can't help but wonder, is that in part because George R. R. Martin was not as involved? I don't necessarily want to sit here and say that it necessarily needs him, because obviously a show can be good without him. But if he was heavily involved in season 1, and I like season 1 more than season 2, that does make me kind of worried for season 3. So we'll see. Hopefully season 3 can be the best season yet. But I do feel like that is a bit of a red flag, if I'm being honest with you. Now, next up, I also want to talk about The Last of Us. Season 3 potentially being the last season of the series. So, Deadline also asked him, House of the Dragon has been renewed for a season 4, and Ryan has gone on the record that it will be the final season. Oh, wait, sorry. We're not getting to that yet. We're still on Game of Thrones. I don't think HBO has said it officially. Is this the case? Blois said, yes, that is the idea. The idea has always been to follow the history of the Targaryens. If you know the books, you know how the Targaryens end up. So there is a natural end to this particular history of that house of the Targaryens. So, it kind of sounds like that has already been assumed, but I don't know. So I'm reporting that season 4 is officially going to be the end of House of the Dragon. So I've not read the books, so I don't know the particulars of, exactly where this is all going to end. Obviously, we know that in Game of Thrones, the House of the Targaryens are not really around. So you would assume that they get wiped out at some point, but I don't know, actually, exactly how that happens. Okay, now let's talk about HBO. Or not HBO, The Last of Us. Since we're talking about endings, I'm going to ask about Hacks and The Last of Us upcoming seasons also being final. Is it something you can confirm? It certainly seems that way, but on decisions like that, we will defer to the showrunners, so you can ask them. So, it's not a confirmation that The Last of Us Season 3 is going to be the last season of the show, but Casey Bloys is basically hinting that it is up to the showrunners, but he says that it certainly seems that way, which I'm kind of taking to mean that they've had conversations, and that's the direction where it's heading. I mean, that seems like the best way to go, right? Because you adapted the first half of the game. There's really only the second half of the game left to adapt. Unless they wanted to do a thing where, I guess spoiler alert for the game if you haven't played it, but I'll put my hand down when I'm done spoiling the game. Obviously, the second half of the game, you're following Abby. Maybe Abby's side of the story can be one season, and then maybe they do another season of Ellie, hanging out with Dina and raising, whatever his name is, and then eventually going off to find Abby again. Could that be its own season? I don't think they should do that. I don't think they should do that, but maybe they could. Anyways, I'll put my hand down. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can do anything, right? It's fiction. You can adapt it in any way you can, but I just feel like the best way to go about it is just make one last season, cover the rest of the game as best as you can, and wipe your hands free of it. Now, by the way, not for nothing, it is just interesting to point out that it feels like Neil Druckmann is not like George R. R. Martin, so he hasn't come out and explicitly said this. But it just feels like Neil Druckmann's little fingers, has not been as involved with with The Last of Us season 2, and he's not going to be involved at all with season 3. And I feel like that kind of coincides with me not enjoying season 2 as much, except for the episode that Neil Druckmann directed and the fact that he's not involved for season 3. It does make me worried. It's actually exactly like House of the Dragon now that I think about it. Because, man, season 2 was just a horrible adaptation of the game. Like, I played the Last of Us Part 2 again after watching season 2 of the show, and it truly is astonishing how seemingly at every single point Craig Mazin was like, hey, how can I make the story worse? It feels like that was what Craig Mazin was asking himself at every point while making The Last of Us season 2. But hey, hopefully he can turn it around. It is kind of interesting, right? Like, they made Ellie so unlikable in season 2 of the show that I guess they could unironically have it be the case that people like Abby more than Ellie by the end of it all. Which I guess would be a success in its own right. Anyways, moving on. He also talked about It Welcome to Derry, and a show that has found itself surprisingly in limbo with no renewal yet. It Welcome to Derry. What is the rationale? It did so well. Let me say, not in limbo at all. Hardly. It was a huge success for us, and Andy Muschietti and Barbara Muschietti are hard at work trying to come up with an idea for a story they'd want to tell for another season. I would happily do it. One of the challenges is there's not a book that you're basing it on, so it's invention. They want to make sure that they have a story they're excited to tell. So it's not limbo other than they need to land on something they're excited by creatively. We'll be there. So, It Welcome to Derry was a surprise success earlier this year. And he's basically saying that it's not greenlit, but it's greenlit. We're just waiting for them to come up with a story. And, I was a little mixed on it. I feel like it started off really good, but by the end of it, I was just kind of uninvested in the story. I felt like they really jumped the shark with the whole time travel timeline thing. Oh, Pennywise is actually a time lord. He experiences everything at once. I was like, what is like by the end of it all, I was just like, what is even happening here? But yeah, I do wonder if, because there's also the brave and the bold of it all. Like, as of right now, Andy Muschietti is still attached to direct Brave and the Bold. So, is that part of it? Like, if Andy Muschietti decides to put all of his focus on a season 2 of It, is he going to get taken off of Brave and the Bold? If he decides to direct Brave and the Bold, is that going to affect his work with It season 2? So I wonder if that's all interconnected. Or maybe, people have more time than you think and he can just do both. I guess that's also possible. Is there anything else I want to talk about in this article? No. Oh, wait. Yes, actually. We also have a release window for Harry Potter. And last but not least, have you narrowed down the premiere window for the Harry Potter series? Well, we've been saying 2027. I would say, to narrow it down to some extent, early 2027. And now you're going to ask, does that mean January, February, March, April? And we're not ready to say. I'll say early 2027. So, yeah, it seems like by around this time next year, we will be watching the Harold Potterman series. I've actually not watched the Harry Potter series. I watched the first movie because I went into it being like, I'm going to binge all the Harry Potter movies because I've never seen them before. This was like a few years ago. I watched the first one and I went, that was okay. And then I just never watched the rest of them. I know I need to get back to it at some point. But, I thought it was okay. I understand that the first few, I think, are very like kiddie, which makes sense because they're little babies, they're little kids, and then I think it takes a dramatic turn. I think is what is it, Prisoner of Azkaban or something, the fourth movie. So I know I should get back to it. I will at some point, but we'll see if the show's any good. Maybe I should just do what I did with like the Rings of Power, because I've also never seen the Lord of the Rings movies, but I just watched the Rings of Power. Maybe I should do that with the show. And everybody else hates it because they're like, it's not the same as the books or whatever. It doesn't live up to the legacy of the films. And I'm just like sitting there going like, I don't know, I thought it was fine. Because I don't know, I don't have anything to compare it to. But we'll see. All right. Next up, is Wonder Man actually a mutant? Let us see. So the Direct had an interview with Andrew Guest, the writer, or one of the writers on Wonder Man. And the Direct asks, could he possibly be a mutant? Guest says, that's a very good question. And it's one we discussed, and it's one we decided we weren't going to answer. So I'll leave it up to the people who make those kind of mutant questions. The Direct asks, the answer's out there though, isn't it? And Guest says it is. So, Wonder Man is or isn't a mutant? Apparently, Marvel has their own definitive answer, but they're choosing not to disclose it publicly. I mean, that is interesting because this is basically a hint, or they're putting it out there in the universe that Wonder Man could potentially have a future in the MCU. Whether that be a season 2 of his show, whether that be him showing up in an X-Men movie, or just in any other MCU movie, it seems like he may have a future in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And honestly, it is interesting when you watch the show, and this was a point that was made in the article, his origin story is not really a focus of it. We don't really know where he gets his powers, and that is kind of unique for Marvel. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure with every, superhero, they either show their origin, we know where they got their powers, or if it's something like Spider-Man, where they had the mindset of, well, we don't need to see his origin because you already know what it is. Wonder Man is very unique in that they just don't tell you how he got his powers, and it's just like, yeah, he just has them. So that's very interesting. I think him being a mutant honestly makes sense, because I feel like with the whole plot line in the show, not going to spoil it, but the Department of Damage Control is like a part of it, and I do feel like they are kind of setting the stage for a Marvel universe that is distrusting and that is discriminatory towards mutants or towards superpowered beings. So, given the storyline of Wonder Man, that it absolutely makes sense that it would be like the kind of a starting point for the mutant saga, or I guess if you want to call Wonder Man an epilogue for the mutant saga, because it is very much starting the whole discrimination against mutants or against superpowered beings that you would imagine is going to be a heavy focus in the MCU after Secret Wars as we get into the mutant saga. So him being a mutant actually makes a lot of sense. So we'll see if that actually ends up happening. All right. Next story. Seems like Deadpool 4 is happening. So I'm reading this from Screen Rant, but it's from a Puck article. According to a new report from Puck, Ryan Reynolds is wisely focused on his next Deadpool movie. The report does not provide any story details for Reynolds as Deadpool 4, only mentioning how the project would allow the actor to come back as the character the audience loves him the most for. At this time, Reynolds and Marvel have not commented on Deadpool 4's status. So, apparently the Puck article kind of like frames this as like Ryan Reynolds being kind of on the back foot because of the whole Blake Lively and Jake Baldoni situation, and that Ryan Reynolds is kind of working on a Deadpool 4 because it would be just a surefire hit for him to get like outside of that whole controversy. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like the whole Jake Baldoni, Blake Lively situation doesn't really matter. I feel like if Blake Lively is in another movie and people are interested in the movie, they'll go see it. If Blake Lively makes another movie and it bombs, I don't think it's going to be because of the Jake Baldoni situation. I don't think anybody cares. People definitely don't care about it, I don't think, when it comes to Ryan Reynolds. Like, I don't know. I feel like people overstate a lot of this stuff. Like, I'll even go so far as to say that I don't think Snow White bombed because Rachel Zegler said some things that people disagree with on the red carpet or whatever. I think it bombed because A, the movie was bad, B, the trailers were terrible, and C, nobody in 2025 cared about, past tense, we're in 2026, nobody in 2025 cared about Snow White, okay? Anybody that felt nostalgia for the original Snow White movie is in hospice. So, like, I don't know. I feel like people really overstate social media backlash. I've kind of come full circle on this issue because at first I was like, Twitter isn't real life. And then I kind of started being like, no, I think Twitter is kind of real life. Like, people are getting more and more online. But then now, considering how botted Twitter is and how just so much of what you see on social media, especially the outrage and the controversy, is literally just straight up not real. It's now made me come full circle that, like, I don't think Twitter is real life anymore. Or at least you cannot use it as a meaningful metric for real life. So, anyways, Ryan Reynolds, I'm sure he is going to make another Deadpool 4. But I don't think he needs to do it in order to, like, salvage his reputation because of the Jake Baldoni, Blake Lively lawsuit, which, to be fair, I've literally done zero research on it. I just don't think that that kind of controversy is going to affect Ryan Reynolds' career in any meaningful way. All right. Next story. We got our first look at Henry Cavill in Highlander. Let me get a better thing at the look here. Okay. I'm going to be real with you. I'm going to be no cap. I don't really know what Highlander is supposed to look like even. Like, I've literally never seen the original Highlander. It is being directed by the John Wick director, and that makes sense because this kind of just looks like John Wick. You know what? Let me actually look up a picture of the original Highlander movie to see how it compares. Okay, I'm just getting cars. It seems like this is the original Highlander. I mean, I don't know. It looks a little weird. It looks weird because I feel like Henry Cavill does not look like this guy. Are there any other pictures? Was the original Highlander just like a fantasy movie? But, like, the Henry Cavill one is, like, modern day? What is going on here? It seems like the original Highlander was a fantasy movie. And the Henry Cavill one is, like, a modern day reboot? I don't understand what's happening. But, sure. Highlander fans, you let me know if this looks any good. Because I have no idea. All right, let's move on to the next story. It looks like a cool movie that I would watch because it looks like the next movie from the director of John Wick. So I'm excited for it from that perspective. I'm just confused as to why it looked like the original Highlander movie was like a fantasy movie or a sword and sorcery movie or something. I don't know. And this is like modern day Henry Cavill is like a grungy modern day action hero. I'm not sure what's going on here, but you guys maybe explain it to me. Also, I'm kind of just rooting for Henry Cavill at this point. It feels like all of his franchises just end up failing. Like, he did. Superman didn't work out for him in the end. Uh, like, what else did he do? He was The Witcher. That didn't work out for him at the end. Uh, I know he's trying to get his like Warhammer movie off the ground. Who knows if that's gonna happen? Or I don't think it's a movie. I think it's a series. He's also he was in that Guy Ritchie movie that flopped. He was in Argyle. That movie also flopped and was terrible. I didn't watch it. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to see some success for the Cavill man, but we'll see. All right, next story. Some book series got picked up by Apple TV. I have no idea what this book series is, but it's an interesting story, so let's get into it. Brandon Sanderson's literary fantasy universe Cosmere picked up by Apple TV. It's an unprecedented deal for the author, whose Mistborn series and the Stormlight Archive are being eyed for film and television adaptation, respectively. The first titles being eyed for adaptation are the Mistborn series for features and the Stormlight Archive series for television. The deal is a rare one, coming after a competitive situation which saw Sanderson meet with most of the studio heads in town. It gives the author rarefied control over the screen translations, according to sources. Sanderson will be the architect of the universe, will write, produce, and consult, and will have approvals. That's a level of involvement not even J.K. Rowling or George R.R. Martin enjoys. All right, so let me attempt to read some of the lore here. While the Cosmere books are set in various worlds and eras, the underlying premise concerns a being named Adalnazium, who is killed by a group of conspirators. The being's power is broken into 16 shards, which are then spread out throughout many worlds by the conspirators, spreading many kinds of magic across the universe. The first Mistborn trilogy of books centered on metal-using magicians who attempt to overthrow a despotic empire. Stormlight Archive's first novel, The Way of Kings, is set in a world with magically powered storms, magically powered knights, and monsters known as the Void Bringers. So, kind of some Star Wars in there, right? With, like, the Force, kind of, maybe. Also, like, sci-fi fantasy, because a lot of this is very fantasy-focused, but it's, like, across different planets, it seems like. So, I assume this is, like, some kind of sci-fi fantasy deal. But I've never read the books. I don't know if they're any good or not. But apparently they're super popular, and apparently Apple TV sees something in this. Now, this is like the dream scenario that I feel like a lot of fans have for their like favorite IPs that are one day going to get adapted into a movie or a TV show, where the author of the source material just has complete creative control. Now, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on this because on the one hand, it's cool. We've always wanted to see a studio just like give the original guy full creative control and let it be his vision through and through. But on the other hand, there is a reason why we don't see this, because the reality is that writing a book is much different than writing a screenplay. So maybe this guy's a really good author. That don't mean that he can write a good screenplay, right? Just because you're a good author does not mean that you're a good producer. You know, producing a TV show, producing a movie is a different thing. And just because you're a good author doesn't mean you know what a good movie is. That doesn't mean you know what a good episode of television is. So the fact that this guy's going to have the final approval of everything, I mean, it is definitely a red flag. But either way, I think it's cool that this is happening, you know, and that Apple is doing this. So I hope that it turns out great, because that would be a really cool story. But yeah, we'll see. Apple TV, they've been making a lot of great content lately, right? Like a lot of their shows are really good. They released F1 this year, which was apparently good. I didn't watch it, but I really like what's that one show that I've seen? Oh my god, it stars Harrison Ford and How I Met Your Mother guy. They play psychiatrists. I don't remember, but I like it. I think there's a new season out that I gotta catch up on. So yeah, we'll see. All right, final story of the day. Well, not really the final story, but it's all kind of in the one thread post. Either way, it looks like Martian Manhunter is gonna be in Man of Tomorrow. So on Threads, James Gunn posted these pictures. He says set design in Chokos. Now apparently, Chokos is a fictional brand in the DC universe. And so, it seems like Chokos is going to be in Man of Tomorrow. I mean, why else would he be posting all of this if it's not going to be in Man of Tomorrow, right? Like, I guess it could technically be these sets could technically be in like Supergirl or Clayface or Lanterns, but this doesn't feel like it would fit like this type of set design doesn't necessarily feel like it would fit in either of those projects. So I'm assuming that this is a Man of Tomorrow thing. And so the other thing that people have been mentioning, which, I don't read the comic books, so I don't necessarily know, but it seems like Martian Manhunter, like one of his things, like one of his little quirks, is that he really loves Choco's cookies. And people are taking the fact that James Gunn is posting Choco's like set pictures and whatnot. People are taking that and they're running with the theory that Martian Manhunter is definitely in Superman Man of Tomorrow. And I can definitely understand why they would say that if that is one of Martian Manhunter's quirks. But I unfortunately feel like I need to be the adult in the room and just say that that's not necessarily what's happening here. Could be. He very well could be in Man of Tomorrow, or he could not be. Like, James Gunn might literally just have Choco's cookies be a brand in Man of Tomorrow, and it's just like in the background somewhere. And Martian Manhunter doesn't necessarily have to be in it. Even if Choco's cookies are directly associated with Martian Manhunter, James Gunn could just have the brand of cookies in his movie in order to just sort of do world building for the DCU. But we'll see. I obviously now, like, the likelihood of Martian Manhunter being in Man of Tomorrow has become much more likely. So we shall see. All right. Now the actual final story. It's a part of this same thread post, but the actual final story is that James Gunn is pushing back against the haters, and he is actively defending Christina Hodson. So under the Chocos post, somebody said, "Hi, James. A source said that filming for Brave and the Bold could begin in 2027 if the script was finished, but the Hollywood Reporter said it wouldn't be until 2028 or even 2029, which is true. I'm really looking forward to seeing Batman in your DCU." So James Gunn then said, "The universe is rife with incorrect information about the Brave and the Bold on every level." Now, I am going to push back on James Gunn here. He himself... Oh man, I really should have... I did not do the correct preparation. I really should have pulled up his reply. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Okay, you know what? This is actually hilarious. Hold on. Somebody replied to James Gunn saying, "This gotta happen." And it's like Grant Gustin as the Flash. James Gunn replied, it happened on TV for 9 seasons. That's a really funny response. But hold on. Uh, okay. So he literally said this a few days ago. Sorry, I'm pulling it up here. Okay. So somebody said, people got so shocked when he said that a lot of stuff about the DCU Batman was still up in the air, but honestly, how else could it be? Even having a strong base with it, defining a ton of the specifics regarding how he operates, what point in his life he's in right now, his relationship, etc., can take a lot of trial and error or just trying and discussing different things, especially since he's had so much history. James Gunn liked this post. I understand that. I also think you're undervaluing the importance of a Bruce Wayne being involved in the DCU. As important as Superman is, Batman is just as, if not more important to the overall structure of DCU. Then James Gunn replied, I'm not at all. I think both, oh my God, was I putting this on screen? Yeah, I was. Okay. Sorry. I'm not at all. I think Batman and Wonder Woman are incredibly important, but I'm also not going to have 2 Batman movies come out in the same year. Okay, so I'm only saying this because this guy is saying the Hollywood Reporter said it wouldn't be until 2028 or even 2029. You are saying this right here with your tweet, James. You are saying that you're not going to have 2 Batman movies come out in the same year. So that has to mean that The Brave and the Bold is not coming out at least until 2028 or 2029. So I'm just saying that what is in this tweet is not necessarily true. It's not wrong, right? Those are the earliest possible release dates for The Brave and the Bold based off of your own words, okay? It just needs to be pointed out, okay? Let me see, actually. He responded to this also. Honestly, it's kind of a blessing that Matt is doing Batman in 2027. It allows people to still get some kind of Bruce Wayne fix. What I'm trying to say is that Batman is present in some form, which is good. And it gives time for the DCU to perfect those scripts. James Gunn says, totally true. And on that note, I'm out. Nice chatting with everyone. Back to storyboarding. So, I don't even disagree with that. Because it is interesting, right? Because one of the things that people... I don't know. I know I'm not in the fucking building, right? So maybe it is kind of tense, but I feel like a lot of people act like James Gunn is like competing with Matt Reeves. And there's a lot of tension in DC Studios because The Brave and the Bold and The Batman Part 2 they're like in competition and whatnot. And it's just like James Gunn is the co-CEO of the studio. The Batman Part 2 is his movie. He's not directing it. But it's a movie coming out under his studio. If the Batman Part 2 comes out and it's a massive success, that's a win for James Gunn. I'm just saying. So, it is totally reasonable for James Gunn to go, we're going to hold off on the DCU Batman because we got Matt Reeves' Batman movie coming out pretty soon. So we're going to put the focus on Matt's Batman movie, and then we'll get to the DCU Batman movie. And it's all my content, so it's all a win for me. Like I think that's reasonable. I'm just saying that James Gunn's little post here, it's not it's a little inconsistent. Okay. Oh, wow. So does that mean no Christina Hodson? She's getting so much unjust hatred. It saddens me. So James Gunn does not answer the question, but he does say, I will only say anyone maligning Christina Hodson's screenwriting skills has almost certainly never read an actual screenplay by Christina Hodson. She's one of the writers who was with us early in the DCU planning stages. I don't think you can judge my writing based on films others directed, as massive liberties are sometimes taken. So he's kind of hinting to what Jeff Schneider, the person who initially broke the story that Christina Hodson was working on Brave and the Bold, he's kind of echoing what Jeff Schneider said, which is that Christina Hodson is kind of one of those directors that is popular within Warner Brothers, or sorry, not directors. She's one of those screenwriters that's popular within Warner Brothers because she's reliable, she's a talented writer, and she's one of those screenwriters where she gives the studio her script, and then the studio and the directors just kind of take it and go off with it and do their own thing. So, she wrote Birds of Prey. What we finally saw in Birds of Prey is not necessarily that original script that Christina Hodson wrote. She's a screenwriter for The Flash. What we finally got at the end of The Flash is not necessarily the script that Christina Hodson wrote. So, this is kind of what I was saying last week. James Gunn is kind of defending her and kind of implying that what Jeff Snyder said was right. I don't think that we should freak out about Christina Hodson because of some bad movies that she wrote. By the way, she was also a screenwriter on Bumblebee, which people really like, so got to give her flowers there. There was also, I think it was in the Hollywood Reporter article that we read last week, that Christina Hodson also wrote a Batman Beyond script that Warner Brothers really liked internally, but they never ended up making it, probably just because they didn't think that they should make a Batman Beyond movie. So, she's probably wrote a bunch of screenplays that for movies we've never seen, and they could all be great. We just don't know. But I also made this point last week. We can say all of this, right? We can quote cope, as the kids say. That doesn't mean that Christina Hodson is an exciting hire. Christina Hodson doesn't make me more excited for The Brave and the Bold. It just makes me... I only make the point that I don't think we should Chicken Little and say that the world is... or that the sky is falling. Now, I will make this point as well. I think this is kind of respectable from James Gunn. Listen. A lot of people say, myself included, that James Gunn doesn't need to be on social media as much as he is, that he doesn't need to respond to scoops and rumors and stuff as much as he does. I don't know. I will always respect a boss standing up for his employees. I used to work a customer-facing job, and it felt really good. When my supervisor, when I would be just, like, struggling with somebody that I was or with a patron, and my supervisor would come out and they would have my back, and they would let the patron know what was up. That felt really good. I'm not even gonna lie. When your boss has your back like that, I don't know. I kind of don't. I really don't. I honestly don't hate James Gunn coming out and having Christina Hodson's back, being like, "Hey, y'all don't know what you're talking about. Christina Hodson is a good writer, and I'm gonna lay it out." I kind of respect it. Is it necessarily something that that a studio executive should be doing? Maybe not. But as a person, I kind of respect it. Anyways, that's going to be it for this latest episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. Let me know what you thought about any and all the stories that we talked about today. And I will see you in the next video.